Welcome to Uncomfortable, conversations about culture and Christianity. My name is Eric, and today I'm joined by Jess.
Hello, world.
And Alex.
I am thrilled to be here right now.
That's a very unusual but tempered response to that question.
Didn't I sound thrilled?
Usually you sound more excited. You have something prepared that's a little more...
Excitable.
Yeah.
It's like every church announcement. You always have to tell people
you're excited.
You're excited and why your excitement should lead them to come to our event.
You sounded
excited?
more dejected.
I'll tell you what I'm excited about. I'm excited about the voicemail that we have today from one of our friends.
We have a voicemail?
We do. We have a voicemail from one of our good friends and listeners. I will preface, because I did listen beforehand, it does harken back to a few episodes ago from Trucker Andrew, who was talking about when he almost ran into a moose and all that kind of stuff. So we'll get an update here in the voicemail, and then he's just got a couple other things too.
It's also referencing the episode
with sex trafficking.
That's right.
With rejuvenating women or restored wings. And so just to set that up with some context here.
Yes, good episodes to go back and listen to.
Right now. So here's the voicemail from Andrew.
Hey guys, it's longtime listener Trucker Andrew. I thought I would call and let you guys know I'm okay. That moose really shook me up for a couple of days. Comment about the last show about the sex trafficking. I know a lot of us in the trucking industry, we have stickers on our trucks that says Truckers Against Human Trafficking. We usually can spot it in truck stops or in rest areas or some of the craziest places. And I had an idea on the back burner for like a Hope House for women, for victims of domestic violence. I thought I would throw that out there. I'll see you guys soon. I'm due for home time. Bye.
All right. Thanks, Trucker Andrew.
Always love hearing from Trucker Andrew.
It's nice to, for people to put a voice to the email that we got before. It's a great suggestion as well.
Yeah.
I think we kind of looked this up beforehand, Jess. You mentioned that this is a great idea.
It's a great idea. I also think that even when Julie referenced this in our episode with her about how truckers are some of the frontline people because they're seeing things, they're in places where it naturally happens. And so I just love that Andrew is like a part of that and cares about that. And so, there is a lot of domestic violence resources in Omaha, which it was a good refresher for me. I've worked with a couple of them just in my practice, but the Open Door Mission, Lydia House is great, Bethlehem House, Heartland Family Services. There's just a lot of great places. The Sienna Francis House, and then the Women's Center for Advancement are just a couple of the places that are resources in Omaha. And so I just think, it's probably wherever you're at, it's probably good to even look that up and be familiar with what resources are in your city or state. But that was a great thought. And it's kind of a good refresher for us to have that on our...
Bringing it to our attention.
Yeah. So thanks, Andrew. We love hearing from you.
Yep. So speaking of Omaha, I'm pretty... It's been a while since we... talked about the zoo.
Okay.
Zoo update.
I was going to say that.
2023.
So we missed a few exciting things happening there when the cheetah escaped, and that was a few weeks ago. A baby giraffe, but we did it. We reclaimed our spot as the #1 zoo in the country, and so
I can tell you're thrilled. I'm excited about it.
I wish we had a button on there for the applause, but according to the USA Today Reader's Choice Awards, we are the 2023 Omaha's Henry Doorly Zoo and Aquarium as the best zoo.
Wow.
And the Asian Highlands as the best zoo exhibit, and Lee G. Simmons Wildlife Safari Park, the best safari. I'm taking home the awards this year.
Wow.
It's exciting. What were we, second before or third or?
I think it's a Reader's Choice kind of thing, and so it always usually in the top 10, but it bounces between San Diego usually and stuff like that. So,
what an honor!
We made it. You still love the zoo. One of your favorite spots to hang.
I'll tell you today would be a great day. There's days like I look outside, I go into the atrium, and I'm like, I would love to be at the zoo today. And today is one of those. Hopefully, we have many more of those coming up.
Like
here
it's
this
not
spring.
I
too
love that
hot.
that's
Not
your
like you're
thoughts.
gonna just melt on
Yeah,
the
like-
sidewalk. but-
Yeah.
Okay, have you guys been to the safari park?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just driven on
Driven
through.
through? It's
I don't
great.
know that
Something you're
I don't
allowed
know
to
that
do.
I have.
It's great. It really is.
It-
There's lots of stuff you can
It
do.
is the best.
Which part is this? Where,
So this is all
It's
the way
in-
out in Ashland.
Yeah.
oh, this is
It's
a
a little
different.
bit of a
Yeah.
drive.
This is part of the zoo, though.
Yeah.
This is getting
It's
accounted
connected to the
for
zoo.
in the
So-
rating of the world
Yes,
or
and
the
it's gotten
country's
If you have a
best.
zoo
popular.
pass, you can get in there for free.
Yeah, it's
Mm-hmm.
gotten more popular because during COVID,
Oh.
it was free if you had a zoo pass to
Okay.
go to the safari park. So yeah, you can
Had
buy
no
a
idea.
zoo membership that has the safari pass, which I do
All right. Well, there you go.
recommend.
We're learning so much today. Just
And
so
again,
We sound
you
like
can
zoo
get a zoo
experts.
pass at your Omaha library if you need to rent one.
you guys
out.
are gonna show up dressed as like Steve Irwin's.
I am not jumping on this bandwagon.
Khaki
Alex. I'll
vest.
support.
We
I'll
should
support
do-
you. I sent you the article for the cheetah.
Yeah, you did. I had
I
seen
think
it.
about it, but
Mm.
I don't know if I'm on the level that you're at.
Yeah, it's true. But
All right.
I don't know.
there's
if many
that song,
people are.
Get on My Level.
Eric
I
is
wouldn't
like
recommend it.
Cringing.
I'm just along for the ride today. No, thanks for the zoo update. Thank you, Andrew, for the voicemail. We always appreciate it. If you want to call and leave a voicemail, you can do that 402-885-9930. We always look forward to hearing those. But today we have a very special guest. We always say that, but this time,
really-
we really
Yeah,
mean
we
it.
mean it.
This is Jim Ratte. He is going to be joining us talking about his experience in the military and his time here at the church. He's retiring, and we thought, well, this is a great time to get him on here and really share all the secrets that he couldn't tell before.
Oh.
Just now that we have him and he's got nothing to lose, he's leaving.
Yeah, I think he has an interesting perspective, which we'll get to hear because he has been high ranking in the military, run an entire submarine base. He'll probably fact check that a little bit, but then also has been in executive leadership at the church. And so
Right.
he's got a story that really can balance, I think, well, because that's a tension for us, I think, as Americans sometimes.
God and country.
Who do we serve and
Yeah.
where does that come into play? So excited for it.
Stay tuned for that. All right, Jim, you're here. Thank you for joining us today. You've made it on the podcast. We've been doing this since 2019.
Yeah.
It's 2023. You're retiring. It's like that though, right? Once you leave, everyone starts being extra nice and just like inviting you to things.
I think
and, like,
I'm a safe person right now
Yeah.
because you can be uncomfortable. I could say everything. I preached this last Sunday, and Mark told me in advance that even if I messed up, he could just sit back and say, I fired him.
We're getting rid of him anyway.
I'm getting rid of him.
he's on the way out.
I'm
He's on the way out.
responding well. So yeah, I avoided the podcast for 3 years, and
Here you are.
I am.
You avoided but did not escape it.
I did not escape
you
it.
are.
No, I don't.
So why don't you, for people who have no connection to you,
Right.
give us a little introduction, maybe about your personal life, professionally, what you do here at the church, that sort of thing.
Sure. Let's see here. Jim Ratte, 66, like a senior citizen, just went on Medicare. I'm pretty proud of that.
Get the buffet discounts now.
Well, I started buffet discounts at 50.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
And then you pick up a different group at 55, and you pick up a different, AARP jumps you at 50.
Yeah.
And you
then
always
get
had the military discount probably for a long time
military
too.
discounts
yeah.
there, we get, all the time.
Wait,
Do you
do
pay
they
for
stack?
anything?
Do they
those?
stack? Yeah. Do you get multiple? Like, can you do the senior? And then-
I have been places where I can get stacks.
Okay,
Yes,
great.
exactly.
Okay.
So now at 65, all the discounts are available.
You don't
All
pay
right.
for anything anymore.
I don't. And right now that I'm leaving, a lot of people want to take me out, so it's actually pretty
You're
good
really
right now.
nice.
So actually, Jim Ratte, married Tammy. Been living in Papillion here for about 18 and a half years or so, which is about the longest Tammy and I have lived anywhere in our lives. 2 kids, James, Rebecca, both on the East Coast, and with 1 grandson. So we are at a place in our lives where we are retiring from Christ Community. This is retirement number 3. I had a 31-year military career in Navy submarines, and then a 10-year defense contracting career before coming into ministry. And I've been here for about almost 7 years at Christ Community in the job that I'm in. So grew up in small town in Minnesota, small town boy, and went to the Naval Academy back in 1975. Majored in marine engineering, and then was an engineer throughout my career. Qualified as a naval nuclear engineer. Operated lots of nuclear power plants and 100 different submarines. Went through my normal submarine career. I say normal, but folks don't know what normal is you progress from a division officer supervising a small group of people to a department head supervising more individuals. And as a department head, they actually expect you to know something. As a division officer, not so much, because you're coming in pretty fresh, and your chief petty officer, your senior enlisted advisor's job is to train you, and so you're getting trained during that time period so you don't mess up too bad as a department head. Executive officer, commanding officer, I commanded an attack submarine out of Norfolk, the USS Phoenix. Then I commanded a naval base up in Groton, Connecticut. Got my master's in national security strategy, how to use national elements of power to further U.S. strategic interests.
They don't just hand those out, do they?
No. So it was I went to National War College, so it was an education in how to conduct war. I mean, so I'm in ministry now, so it's a battle against Satan now.
Yeah.
Previously, it was a battle against other folks. So. Then I moved out here to Omaha to work at U.S. Strategic Command, and I thought it was going to be Sleepy Central. And I thought, what could happen in the middle of the country? Standing watch at U.S. Stratcom's Operations Center. And then they decided to reorganize the place, and they put me in charge of things that I was woefully underqualified to do. And I did that for about a year and a half. 80 to 100-hour work weeks. It was pretty stressful.
Wow.
And I just, at the end of 2 years, I told my detailer that I really needed to move because I was like burned. And he said, "You can't move. You got another year." And I said, "No, I don't have another year." So he offered me a job to run the NROTC unit up in Purdue University. And I said, "What do I want to go to Purdue for?" He said, "Because if you don't go to Purdue, you're going to stay here at Stratcom." And I said, "I'm not going to stay at Stratcom." So I decided to retire. And then I went in and did defense contracting, doing the same kind of stuff I was doing doing strategic planning for global strike operations, operations center work. And the people who worked for me, I now worked for. And I did that for the next 10 years until Jesus captured my heart. And I came to ministry through college studies at Grace University and a number of stories along the way at how God captured me as a non-Christian coming to faith during that time period. And I've been here at Christ Community for a number of years, working as the executive director or executive pastor of ministry support. And so that's kind of a big catch-all kind of job. As I've been going through the relief process with Craig Walter, who's coming in behind me, he said, "Jim, you're kind of like the fixer." Because, people come to my door, a dozen during the day, and they all have some kind of issue that they all want
I've
fixed.
Definitely knocked on your door a couple times.
You've been at my door. Yeah. So basically, the missions reports to, in my neck of the woods, all the facilities and operations, HR, finance, accounting, all staff development and health, everything having to do with licensing and ordination of the staff for ministry, all the leadership teams I'm either a part of or lead, strategy, vision, benevolence. I volunteer as the campus the campus landscaper, and so I lead a team of about 20 people, and we pull weeds and do mulch. And so in the evenings after working during the day, I go pull weeds and do mulch around the campus.
I'm assuming Craig is stepping right into that role for you.
Craig is not
a green thumb
of that, but I did find a relief for myself.
Oh, good.
So part of the job was to find somebody who was going to step in behind me and do the campus care related stuff. Lead a men's group on Friday morning, Men of God. And so involved in a number of different things. Ordained in ministry, which was a component of this also. And so it's a pretty wide It's pretty eclectic. You know, in any given day, I'm not quite sure what's going to happen, but the best ministry happens during the interruptions during the day. People come by and say, "Gee, is it tough to get interrupted every few minutes?" Because people come in and see me, and then the trail is outside my office.
Oh, he's talking to people.
Yeah, but the best ministry happens during that time period, and the worst ministry happens when I have to do the paperwork and the things that are part of my job. So when people come by, that's my focus in life, and so that it just changes up any given day and every given topic, and I love that.
And looking at your two careers, I mean, truly two different careers, but I feel like there's similar giftings or things like you have to be very organized, like very on the ball with a lot of things. Do you feel like that's something that you've just always had? Have you had to grow into that? Is it something that you feel like is like always been a gift? So you've looked for jobs that are like that?
I've always done really super well at that kind of organization. I'm a list kind of guy. If I don't have a list, I'll make a list. If I don't have a list, I'll make a list of the things I've done just so I can check them off. Planning, organization, the elements of management. I'll just put those into the elements of management. I've always been very good at. Leadership is a little bit different. I've gone through the school of hard knocks on that, managing small groups of individuals where I couldn't mess up too bad, to different sizes as we progressed, giving me a little more responsibility. But it's all been very much on the job. I mean, the Navy provides you some leadership training, but frankly, it's not very good. Most of it's on the job, and your guinea pigs are the people who work for you. And so sometimes you've got a good day, and sometimes, man, I can think of some leadership things I've done which are just, it's terrible. And then some great times. And so I think before the naval submarine base had probably 20, 30,000 people. That it was a small town, essentially, that I became the mayor of the small town. And when I got here, I also took a master's in public administration because I thought I wanted to do small town city management. I enjoyed the submarine-based job because of its, the nature of running essentially a small town.
Yeah.
And so I did the master's in that, and I was working on the master's in criminal justice for no particular reason.
You wanted a third master's, trifecta.
We were all my buddies at work.
Yeah.
We took the public administration master's, and then we decided, hey, this is pretty fun to go out on Tuesday nights and Thursday nights to go to class and hang out and go over to Stella's for a burger. So we just decided to take the criminal justice masters, and now one of the guys is the chief of police over in Papillion. So he used his degree to some effective purpose. The rest of us knuckleheads, we had really no reason to be taking the degree other than the fact that we were hanging out on a Tuesday night with each other doing a master's program, which is kind of weird, I guess. But then I dropped that when I came over to do the ministry degree.
Yeah, at Grace.
Because I recognized that I was just spinning my wheels. I came home to Tammy one night and said, we just did this class on blood splatter analysis, and I had to evaluate what the blood splatter patterns looked like. Was it a baseball bat, or was it a fist, or was it? And I'm going, oh, this is not where I want to be. This is like soul consuming. And so it was good to drop that. It was good to shift over to something that was going to bring me more life. But it was an element of what I felt I was called to and preparing for. I didn't know what. I wasn't preparing for this job, but it was preparing for ministry in some way, shape, or form. And at the end of it, this is where I landed.
That's fascinating. Well, I think one of the things that is so unique about you and even the stories that you shared so far is you had high level, military experience where you gave an entire lifetime, as long as we've been alive, at least just to the military alone, and, commanded, that submarine base, had to do with war and strategy. And then at a church, not a lot of people have executive leadership at a large mega church type of place. And I think, especially over the last few years, you've got a pandemic. Anytime there's a presidential election, there's a lot of things that can get folded into terms that we coin, like Christian nationalism has become one of those things that people argue about. Just for a definition, because I think anytime you use a term, it's good for us to give a definition because anything people can run in their mind. But one of the definitions I found was Christian nationalism is a cultural framework that idealizes and advocates a fusion of Christianity with American civic life. Christian nationalism contends that America has been and always should be distinctively Christian from the top to bottom in its self-identity, interpretation of its own history, sacred symbols, cherished values, public policies, and it aims to keep it that way. So as you, and most of your military career wasn't as a Christian, as you hear like a term like that, and you've led in both those areas, what do you think about this term and how we use it, things like that?
Christian nationalism. Okay, the term. So I didn't. I spent my entire military career as a non-Christian. To include the majority of my defense contractor career as a non-Christian, and that's a different place to work in that environment. So if I was going to think Christian nationalism, I would put it in the same category as I would put whatever nationalism. It's and so I would put it in the same category as LGBTQ nationalism or atheist nationalism or black nationalism, and I think of the entire concept as smoke, chaff, countermeasures, flares, the kind of things that you pop when you want to hide, you want to divert attention, you want to cause individuals to suddenly sit back and shut up because you say something that is so outrageous that, by gosh, I don't want to be accused of fundamentally espousing a Christian theocracy within the political structure of the United States. So I'm just going to sit back and hide my faith. I think in some terms, when we use the term racism, there is racist stuff. But often we use the term racism to shut a conversation down because I just got accused of being racist. I'm going to back off here. So I think the term Christian nationalism falls, in my mind, in the same category. I don't think it's bad to be nationalistic, meaning that. So let me back up here a second. Often we can confuse patriotism and nationalism. I think patriotism is a love of country, an appreciation for what we have, a love for our national values, the landscape, the terrain, the history, the music, the language, the people, the climate that we love and just are super glad that we live here. When suddenly I think that is the be-all that ends all, and I have it made and you don't, and lose track of the appreciation for the fact that different cultures are beautiful in their diversity. They're beautiful in how they've developed and grown, that there's reason for all of us to be at the table, and I've put that aside, then I move from patriotism into a self-interested, self-centered, nationalistic view, which tends to seek to protect everything that I do to the exclusion and the detriment of someone else. Almost the antithesis of globalism. We live in a global culture, but if I'm more globalistic in my framework, then my sovereignty should be subject to compromise for the good and welfare of global economy, the global political system, the global monetary system, the global government system. And then we'll think, well, that's not a good idea because now I'm subject in this country to someone's whims in an international legal system. So we tend to shrink and become very nationalistic and focused. Now, that still hasn't gotten too bad until I add a modifier to it. I'd look at Christianity as a modifier, meaning, man, if we're not following a Christian doctrine in every way, shape, or form, like I said, a Christian theocracy, then you are bad. You are out. And so I think I hear the term Christian nationalism, and I think, what are they trying to hide? What are they trying to throw up against me to get me to shut up? Because I don't think my faith should be private. I think I'll carry my faith into my life, public life, my political life, my social environment, and I shouldn't have to not do that. But I don't do it in a way that also means I got it licked. I'm the only one who understands what's going on, and if you don't agree with me, I'm going to silence you. I want to hear your voice. And you get to hear mine in a non-confrontational, pushy way. But I don't do it in a way that would tend to make you feel like you have no voice. And I think that's the nationalistic viewpoint. And I think Christian nationalism is what they would, in a way, to silence the voice of a Christian in the workplace because they don't want to hear the message. And so I think whatever nationalism is dangerous, whatever nationalism, the term is dangerous.
When you hit a little bit on patriotism, and I'd like to maybe dive deeper into that as kind of a juxtaposition to nationalism, because I think a lot of times those lines get blurred, especially in today's culture. I think people are a little more self-aware of America and and the sins of our past and other things like that, but also there's an up-and-coming generation that maybe doesn't have that pride that older generations had for the country, or the appreciation for the country they're growing up in. So how would you help people understand what it is to be a patriot or to practice patriotism and what that means and how that's different than nationalism and why it is a good thing and why we can be proud of our country but still hold it to the scrutiny that it deserves and make changes we need to, but we can still be patriotic about it.
Yeah. So, have you ever seen what your kid's room looks like when they don't care or don't have any, guidelines by mom and dad, and what level that they will devolve to in what they hide under their bed, or what they don't put in their drawer, or what they don't make, or how they take care of. Alex, I'm looking at you.
Yeah, when I buy them something and they don't really care about the value of it,
Yeah. How does it get treated?
Yeah, it's not very good.
It's a mess. You've got a number running around the house. How does that work for you?
I mean, it doesn't work well unless I think unless I teach them the value or teach them how to do something or what the right way to do it is, they will kind of make up their own thing. So I guess if I don't tell them, it's kind of my fault a little bit, or they'll just go.
The analogy is, if you don't love something and you don't appreciate it for its value, then you'll mistreat it.
Right.
You'll pollute it. You'll break it. You'll burn it. You won't lift it up. You won't advance it. And I think someone who says, I'm not patriotic, I am so locked into the sins of the past, I can't appreciate where I'm living, they're destructive. They're not destructive because they're focused on the past. They're destructive because they got nothing now. They got nothing to look forward to. They are consumers completely, and destructive consumers. We've got some stuff in the past. There isn't a person on the planet who live in a country that doesn't have something in their past. And it's important to know that. And it's important to remember to not make those same mistakes. But you can appreciate today while still understanding what took place in the past. Because you'll never move forward if you're living back there, because all you do is destroy today. And there's nothing then to move forward with. So I think it's sad that we'll get lost in the past. We still have to appreciate it. We should still understand it. We should try not to replicate it.
Right, learn from it.
We should learn from it. There are things we haven't learned from that we should and should be a part of the national dialogue. But if that's your only frame of reference, then your today is going to be the most god-awful, messy room that you can imagine, and that's what you're going to carry forward into the future, and it's sad. And so, I mean, I don't think you have to be a flag-waving, card-carrying, firework displaying person to be patriotic, but you got to love and appreciate something about where you live. You should go someplace else where you do.
And it's interesting,
wherever that is.
It's interesting too, because you see things like 9/11, different things that have happened, and it's unified the country. I remember even seeing the yellow ribbon magnet that was on everybody's car around that time, and it seemed to just break down so many barriers. And you start to, not to say that we would ever wish any type of tragedy or anything, but it does seem like you start to lose sight of that the further removed we are from like what makes our country strong, if that makes sense. And so I wonder what values do you think the word patriotism have that people should be looking for and try to instill, whether they're raising their kids, and not just, go off the deep end, but how can we be proud of our country? How do we display that in a way that isn't arrogant or boastful, but it's...
Well, I remember back in the 70s when I headed to the Naval Academy. It was just the tail end of the Vietnam War. And to be in the military was not, to be associated with the military was not the highest of appreciated professions. The 70s into the 80s, it was, dogs and strangers. You get on this dogs and military, you walk on the street, you're not fit for company. I mean, it's spit upon. And you didn't wear your uniform in public because you were in danger. I mean, it was terrible to be in the military at that time. So we move into the 90s, into the 9/11 component, and all of a sudden the military was, looked upon as a different perspective, and all of a sudden, people appreciated you. And so that was actually kind of a different feeling. But in some respects, it was short-lived. And it ebbs and flows and wanes, a little bit when there's something that's bad happen and you roll out the military and they do something heroic associated with it. And then the appreciation for the military tends to lift up, and that goes away, and then it kind of dips a little bit again. So there's a cycle that we go through. I look at it as a cycle of hope, and a cycle because I think heroic things that people see, and that's when I see the military military appreciation go up, is a cycle of hope. And if you're not patriotic, I'm just going to use the word patriotic as a blanket term, but I'm not necessarily referring to, like I said, my gosh, you're always saying this, singing the Star Spangled Banner, and
you only wear red, white, and blue every day.
You only wear red, white, and blue every day, and
Right.
you spend $1 bazillion at 4th of July because you light up the skies with fireworks, and that's not what I'm referring to. A sense of appreciation for what you have, hope for the future. I think the issue of patriotism is one of hope, an appreciation for the present, a hope for the future, influenced influenced by an understanding of the past and where you came from, is what I would hope for individuals moving forward.
Yeah.
In the absence of that, it's a scary place to live. In the absence of hope. Well, Jess, you're a counselor. People go through life all the time without hope. I've been in a place without hope and contemplated suicide without hope. I know what without hope means. It's not a good place to be. And so I see someone who can't appreciate what they have today without any forward view, hope, it's just it makes my heart hurt, and I'm sad for that. And I think they need to do something, whether it's living someplace else, whether it's finding that hope. I found hope in Jesus. That's where I found hope when I was looking for hope. I would advocate that's a great place to find hope, but that's not the only place for some to do that. There's a lot of individuals who are in that bad situation who are not Christian, and my heart, it just really burns for them to be able to appreciate what they have today and hope for something better tomorrow. That encapsulates kind of a broad definition of patriotism. And I think you can be patriotic depending on wherever you lived, if you have those kind of thoughts.
And I think also, I love that you brought up hope, because if we think of hope as a value, to me, like when I'm talking to clients, it's your values are the things that no matter what happens around you, those don't change because they're a part of you. They're important to you. And so I even think about how using hope, there's probably some other things that I would think are values to you, but even we can use that going forward. And I even think in your career of working under different commander-in-chiefs. So you worked under many different presidents, I'm sure many different democracies and things that were asked of you, but what has that been like? I mean, even thinking about patriotism, your values, was there things that, you didn't agree with, but that you were asked to do, and kind of how did you navigate that?
Sure. Yeah, so I 31 years between the Naval Academy time and active duty military was about 31 and a half years, and then another 9.5, 10 years of defense contracting time. So it's quite a bit, 4 decades.
Yeah.
4 decades. And so that spanned a number of different political administrations. So in the military, I would say you don't think about really who the commander-in-chief is.
I wondered about that.
You really don't. I mean, I'll just say really don't care. You're supposed to, within the military structure, be apolitical. It is a Uniform Code of Military Justice offense, punishable, if you choose to wear your uniform or take a position in the military for a particular political party or a candidate. It's not allowed. So I really didn't think political party politics. I really didn't care who the commander-in-chief was. One, because there are so many levels of bureaucracy between me on my submarine and the Oval Office that I cared a lot more about who my next boss's boss's boss is and not who their boss's boss's boss is. So there's a level that it just didn't matter. Fundamentally, the war plans and the U.S. strategy is not something the president determines. I mean, there is a thing called bureaucracy that is an engine, and it is a powerful one, and it is hard to stop it, and it's moving in a certain direction. In order to change that direction, it takes more than a couple of years in the Oval Office.
Yeah.
Now, the president can make a lot of decisions that impact the military. He doesn't create the war plans for country X and the country Y, and he doesn't talk about how I take the submarine to sea and submerge it and fight it. That's well below his, and that's where I live. That's the area that I would be focused on. The biggest area is that he would, authorize the release of nuclear weapons, or he would authorize the release or the deployment for combat, and that was our job. And so whoever that was, we would follow those orders if they're legal. And I think the legality of orders we would consider more important than which political party was giving them. So for me, it really didn't matter what political party was in power. We had a certain set of things we needed to do, and we did them, provided that they were legal. Uniform Code of Military Justice, International Justice, Geneva Convention, the laws of war. There's lots of different things that talk about what is okay to do and what's not okay to do. And you're obliged to follow legal orders, and you're not obliged to follow illegal orders. You get to figure out which one is which, and if you're right, great.
Yeah.
If you're wrong, you're in the stockade or you get shot.
Yeah.
You know, something's bad's going to happen. So you get a chance to choose that. But I never found it to be a big issue at all. I was more focused on the folks around me, the guy next to me, my crew, the people who were under my authority. I was focused on them. How could I lead them? How did I help them to understand what we were doing, whether what we were doing has value or not having value? And sometimes that was a bit of a tough one. You know, it was a leadership challenge to convince a crew to deploy 6 months early and leave their families behind when they weren't expecting it. They had 6 months worth of plans, and we're going 6 months early. That was a bit of a leadership challenge to convince them that was the most wonderful thing in the world to do.
Yeah. I think, obviously, historically, there have been other countries in world history that seemed like God was on their side, right? That they were the most blessed people under the sun. And I think one of the parts of maybe nationalism and Christian nationalism is that we tend to think that God is for us more than he's for a global world, you know, or that he's blessed us or has more interest. He's only preserving us and is fighting battles for us in a more of a literal sense than just a spiritual sense. And so how do we balance like pledging allegiance to a country that, you know, we do think is great and has a lot of great morals and some foundation of Judeo-Christian, though not as much as sometimes I think we think.
Sure.
How do we balance, you know, pledging allegiance to that and what's in the best interest of that, but also pledging allegiance to Jesus? Because sometimes it feels like they can both be at odds, especially as we weave politics and, you know, those types of things into it. Like, how have you found, as somebody who fully was all in, didn't really care about Jesus, care about any of that kind of stuff, pledging allegiance to that, and now it seems like, you know, you've got both to manage. Which one is the king of your life? Which one do you bow down to more? So how do we manage those tensions?
Yeah, in one sense, it was easy during my military career because I wasn't a follower of Jesus. And in reality, you know, there were Christians on submarines, and we had services. We put aside some time on Sunday morning or on Saturday for the Jewish faith, or Sunday morning where Christians would get together and worship, and I'd sleep in, and I really didn't care whether they were down in the ward room worshiping or not. What was everybody considered more important was how good at what you did, how good were you at the job that you were assigned. If you were a Christian, you were good at your job. If you're a non-Christian and you're good at your job, great. If you were bad at your job, if you're the commanding officer and bad at your job, not so good. So it was really, within the military structure, it was more of a competency, proficiency, job-related thing. How good were you to be able to protect the guy next to you? And if you're bad, the guy next to you is going to shoot you, so you're not going to hurt him. So it's a competency, a proficiency thing, and you weren't really thinking about the higher level structures of politics and bureaucracy and who's in charge and what's happening within the halls of Congress. It was so far removed from what was driving your life that it really wasn't much of a thought. Fast forward into the follower of Jesus, I'm reminded that when we say the Pledge of Allegiance, it says under God. It doesn't say my allegiance is over God. It says I pledge allegiance under God. Matthew 22, Luke 20, render under Caesar what's Caesar's, render under God's what's God's. And so when I pledge allegiance to the United States, I'm pledging my patriotism, my loyalty, my fidelity consistent with my Christian faith, not in advance of it, over it, not to subjugate it. My king, is Jesus. There's certain things he's told me to do. One of them, he says, pay attention to what the state tells you to do, because I've put them in charge and they're running things. But there's things that I look at in the military that I wouldn't do if I was told to. Illegal orders. Shoot that group of prisoners. That probably, that's an illegal order. That's something you shouldn't do. Well, if I'm told to do something which violates my faith, I have a choice to make. I have the same choice to make in that Pledge of Allegiance. Do I violate my Christian beliefs, or do I do the thing that society and culture and the political system tell me to do? And I have a choice to make. You see that within the news and the culture. People who have made choices when given an option, whether you're a cake baker, or a wedding planner, or those have been some of the bigger legal cases, but people make choices all the time to do something or not to do something. And so I can live with both intention. My king is Jesus, but he also hasn't told me to ignore the environment or the ocean or the air, the water that I'm swimming in, because we live in a world. We're told to participate in the world, to interact with the world. We're told to love our neighbor as ourselves, which means we have to get out and be in a part of the world and interact and do well. So I can find that I can work in both. I rarely see something that's so opposed, and maybe I haven't been impacted like someone said. Here's an example. I'm a minister, right? So if I'm told to do something that's against my faith as a minister, and I say no, well, I guess I could be subject, if the political system chose to take me to task for that, they could. That's secondary to my Christian faith, and so I would stand firm in that. One nation under God, not above God. So he's the guy I follow. I haven't faced that to the degree that some people have. Often we use the word persecution. I haven't faced that. I've seen it in public, and quite frankly, we see it in a different way in the United States.
Yeah.
Than maybe you see in countries. It's less physical persecution than maybe cultural, social persecution of sense. But I haven't faced it. I think I will here one day. Maybe even in my next role, hitting the road out, surrounded by more non-Christians than I am while here at Christ Community Church.
Yeah.
I may have more opportunity to see that. I would think, I would hope, I would pray that as one nation under God, that I look to Jesus as my leader and I stand firm in that particular faith, in my faith. And then make a choice. And sometimes that choice may have consequences if the political system wants to push in that particular direction. So that doesn't keep me from loving the United States of America, though.
Yeah.
It doesn't keep me from just having super joy to be able to travel the country and see the natural wonders, the sights, the small town America, interact with people, hear their stories, just to be part of their lives. I love the culture. I love the language. I look forward to hitting different places where I'll see different cultures and different languages right within our own country. None of that other stuff softens this joy I have about being where I'm at, like right here in the United States. I don't have much of a desire to travel overseas. Some people really like to do that as a part of their time. I really didn't even enjoy that doing it as a part of the military. There's so much to see here. I want to see every little small town. I want to see every little Christian Missionary Alliance small church. I want to see the big chair and the big ball of yarn and the supersized whopper thing over here that's, makes up a town's kind of pedigree and kind of thing.
Don't miss the Corn Palace.
Yeah, giant corn cob. I want to see those kind of exciting things. I love it today. I have a hope for the future. And I recognize there may be a choice in that, but it doesn't diminish my love for the country.
Well,
my love for Jesus.
I think a lot of what we're talking about too, when we talk about the Christian faith, is that there's a camaraderie that comes with that. If I know that you're a believer, there's some ideals that I can just assume that you're gonna stand by, and we're probably gonna get along for the most part. One thing that I think we've seen politically shift over the years, maybe more so than ever, is this politicization of Christianity. And a lot of times, like, if a political leader says I'm a Christian, or a political party says it's the Christian party, then there is almost an obligation for Christians to fall in line. And if they don't, then there's backlash. I would love to hear maybe your thoughts on that, and how do we actually get back to a more democratic system? Because a lot of times there's no middle ground. If you're if you're a Republican, then obviously you're a Christian. If you're a Democrat, then obviously you're not. That's kind of the narrative that gets written, whether it's spoken or not. And then when we villainize someone across the aisle from us, then there's no room for common sense. There's no room for discussion. There's no room for friendship with people who just have different views. Whether you take abortion or gay rights, things like that, and say, okay, these are Christian values, but then you look at the left and go, well, social justice and things that Jesus fought for. Well, yeah, I don't know. It's kind of gray because that's over there on the left, and we're not about that. Maybe So these lines get so blurry, and then things, even like the term social justice, stuff like that. It's a triggering word for different sides for different reasons, because they just think of one thing. They don't think of what it might actually mean, or what the heart of that person is speaking to them. And it just causes walls to be built. So how do we avoid over politicizing politics, and where can we go from that?
This is a fun one. This is I wish I had just a super answer
Just
at
the
that,
silver bullet.
because it is such a silver bullet that I am confident that I make a fortune on this one if I had an answer to that.
Yeah.
If I could can and bottle that answer, wouldn't that just be a marvelous invention?
Well, that's what we're hoping, so we can clip this and share it on social media.
Just like fusion energy in this time period, clean, unlimited energy, happiness where people actually compromise. And the Constitution was written and the government formed to be run and managed by the consent of the governed. It was designed and built around the need for compromise. But it doesn't work so well when two sides set up opposing, views. They set up their battle lines. They draw their trenches. They dig their trenches. It's very like I'm back into my military days. I got a defined enemy, but my defined enemy is my neighbor.
Yeah,
because my neighbor is, a Democrat or a Republican, an independent or gay or black or something. I dig my trenches and I create these battle lines where there's no opportunity for compromise or conversation. Really, conversation which drives compromise, mutual understanding. The government was built, the Constitution was written for people to be able to converse in a polite way, to compromise, reach a compromise solution which is best for the nation, not for themselves, not for their election, not for the constituents, for the overall nation, not for their political party. But we've lost track of a number of those things. So we're very divided in terms of political party. I used to classify myself as a Republicrat because I looked at issues
Yeah.
And, there was some issues that I loved on the Republican Party. There were some issues I hated. And the vice versa in the Democratic Party. There's some issues and positions I loved and some that I didn't. And then it was actually more difficult in that situation because then when we came to election time, I had to pick a political party, although some issues I liked over here, some I didn't over here. So I tended to focus on maybe who the candidate was. Mm-hmm. Today, I don't think it matters whether you're Donald Trump or Donald Duck or Joe Biden or Joe Blow. I don't think it matters a darn bit because the parties are so well defined and have such battle lines and bastions and fortresses created that it's all about the political platform of those parties, and whoever is sitting in the Oval Office has a limited ability to impact the entrenched bureaucracy because we've allowed it to separate to that degree where you can't even talk to each other anymore. Yeah. So in one sense, it's much easier. You take a look at a political platform, I really don't care who's running. I mean, if it irritates you, okay. But in some sense, it doesn't matter a lot. It does matter what the political party and the political machine is identified as their basic party platform policies. Which ones do you espouse? Which ones fit your value judgment? What's your worldview tell you in terms of whether you want to select an independent, a Republican, or a Democratic Party ticket based upon the platform that the party has created, the policies, the practices, the things that they say make up they've defined for you what their fortress looks like. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the current political system, the guy who's, the president of the United States, he's got some power. I mean, he does. But to impact his individual political party, oh my gosh, those things are machines now.
Yeah.
And because they become like that, until those walls are broken down and they actually talk across those trenches, I wish I had a silver bullet to answer your question. Yeah. But in one sense, I'm less concerned about who runs, but what the political platform is. And so I've changed what I look at now. And again, there's some things at each side of the political aisle that I think resonate with me. Yeah. And I get to choose one.
Well, and I think one of the things that, you got to do in executive leadership here at Christ Community Church happened to be, leading us through a global pandemic, and it seemed like we were in a spot, as a church for whatever, masks, vaccinations, all that kind of stuff, where we made everybody mad. If you were an extremist on one side, they were mad at us. I fielded a lot more emails and had a lot more conversations, but we would constantly see, well, you guys are this because of one thing, or you guys are way woke or whatever. And so it's such a difficult thing to live, in the middle of that when we do have these two extremes that don't want to see, and it's based on not even actual facts half the time or actual conversations, but it's just based on propaganda, that we receive from one place or another, and then we draw those battle lines and make everybody our enemy. And so I think that was a fascinating, just to watch you try to navigate that and the hits that that we took because of a lot of those things. Yeah. So
it was an interesting time. I found, however, that most ideas and maybe even I think within the country, we're so focused on the loud voices on the left and the right that we forget that I think we're really looking at a big bell curve here. And we're looking at, the 5-10% on either side, super loud voices, drowned out the middle. Mm-hmm. And we think it's really that kind of divisive. And so taking just the pandemic, there was folks that if we wore masks, that we obviously weren't faithful. We didn't have adequate faith. And if we didn't wear a mask, we didn't love our neighbor. So what do you do? Because they're
both using Jesus as like their...
And they both, exactly, and they're both this centered, we don't love our neighbor. Jesus tells us to love our neighbors or love ourselves. So I'm going to wear a mask so that other people, I'm loving myself by wearing a mask so I don't impact other people. That's what Jesus said. And other folks would say that, hey, if you're you're doing this that based upon the science that you really don't have faith. I mean, your faith is lacking. I love both the people who have those voices. I love both of them. So I don't look at people's ideas now and allow them to shape my perception of them personally. Too often ideas are used as hammers, which beat people up as opposed to subject of conversation. So I don't use those to hate them or hate that particular group. What did my leadership structure, what did the state tell us the rules were? Whatever they were, that's what I did. And that catered to the middle. And I could handle either side because I didn't hate them. I loved them. And we had conversations. Yeah. And at the end of the conversation, I'd give them a hug. and I'd do whatever I do whatever the state told me, or Douglas County, or the state, and sometimes it would change twice a week, which was the frustrating thing. Is that the fact that it changed. I had so many revisions of that policy. It just made me crazy. So, in some respects, I chose not to hate either side. But
even though they both hated you.
Oh, they could, but Jesus loves me.
Yeah.
And my mom does.
Amen.
And Tammy did too. And I know you did too. So
Yeah.
I was happy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Jim, we could go down a lot of different rabbit holes here. There's you have a lot of life experience that you could share with us, and we appreciate your time that you have given us today. And hopefully it's been eye-opening for a lot of people. Oh, you mentioned it a little bit about what's next for you. You're going to hit the road. You're going to be doing some rural ministry and some things like that. Is there anything you want to add to that to let people know where they might bump into you along the way?
You got a TikTok channel or anything that you're going to be capturing
YouTube
all this
channel,
on?
anything?
Okay, so I'm going to make a confession here in front of my online, category here, and in front of, the online community. I had to turn something off in my time period. So I have a Facebook page, but I look at it like once every 2 months. I mean, it's like I've just said the sinful thing. So
we'll forgive you.
But I recognize that a lot of people want to know where we're going and what we're going to do, so I have to re-inject myself there. So what are we doing? It is Christ Community Church is in a really healthy place. The staff is in a healthy place. The church is in a healthy place. I think the congregation is in a healthy place. Tammy and I need some rest.
Yeah.
When my dad died, my mom died in 2016, just before I came into ministry here. And then Dad died just after, later that year. I'd been in ministry here for about a year. My brothers came to me after Dad died and said, "Okay, Jim, you're the oldest. Don't screw it up. We've been waiting for you for a long time, and we're getting tired. You gotta figure this thing out, because we're waiting to do the kind of things that we've dreamed about as brothers." I got 3 brothers, and so carry on. And so I've been doing this, and I really feel that it's time for me to minister to my kids and my wife, who I really was just single parent for our entire military career. I was a workaholic. And so the Navy couldn't have possibly ever survived without me there, right? So I was there Saturday, Sundays, nights, when I didn't have to be. And I spent years, 15 of our 30-year military time, probably 20 years away from Tammy. It's just a huge amount of time.
Wow.
And I want to minister to her better. I want to minister to my kids better. I didn't raise my kids in the Christian faith. They know where Tammy and I have been. We model a difference to them, and I want to be able to interact with them more. I want to interact with my brothers more. There are people I know all over the country, large CMA churches, people I've done military time with, small churches, communities, small town communities I haven't seen that I really want to know. I want to know everybody. And so Tammy and I have sold our house, and we're getting rid of all our stuff, and we're moving into our fifth wheel trailer, and we're hitting the road. And we're going to be full-time on the road. someplace different, like all the time.
Yeah.
Some of that time, I'm going to be working for the district, doing pastoral care in small rural churches. I had a passion for rural churches. I wanted to do that at the start of my career, and I wound up in Christ Community because I realized, well, I didn't realize anything. Everybody beat me into submission and made me realize that I wasn't ready for that. You would think this big church environment, you need to be, you have to be that much more ready. Oh, there's a lot of people around here that'll help me do a job when I'm messing up, right?
Yeah.
But when you're in a rural church and you're by yourself, there's no one there to back you up. And so I think I needed some time here in order to become proficient enough to minister within that smaller context. And so we look forward to doing pulpit fills, sabbatical coverages.
Wow. So you're going to be busy.
I think we are going to
But
have
we're
a
rested.
You're gonna be on an
schedule
adventure.
as full or more full than we have today.
Yeah.
But we're going to be in parks and communities all over the country. I may do some other RV ministry stuff. I mean, those things. There are more things
So
that
many
Tammy and I
dreams.
think we want to do
Yeah.
than we have time to do during our restful
Yeah.
period. But this is not a vacation. So the people have talked to us about you can't do like you normally do for vacation, right? You get to a place, you do like 50 different things in 2 days just because you got to do it all. Then you come home and you collapse and rest from your vacation. This is like a daily thing, so it's not like I can treat it like a vacation.
Yeah.
So folks have talked about, no more than 4 hours of travel, 4 or 5 hours of travel. When you travel the day, you get in by 3 o'clock so you can get set up in time, and you stay at a place for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're not doing this hopping kind of thing.
Good advice.
So I'm not sure how this is going to work out. This is a leap of faith.
Mm-hmm.
God is really clear with us that the best is yet to come, and there's going to be great ministry opportunities, and He'll bring us folks. Tammy said that she thinks we're leaving the 99, searching for the one that is lost. And God will bring that one that's lost to us. And we just have to be open and attentive enough to be able to minister to them or have a conversation.
Yeah.
And in some cases, that conversation is just like being nice.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have to talk about Jesus. I should be nice. Because being nice is such a rare commodity sometimes in our personal dialogue now that people look at you like, well, you must be a Christian. Why did you think? Because you're nice. It's like, well, there you go. I didn't even have to say anything about being a Christian. You just said I'm nice.
Yeah.
I just want to be nice. So we're going to be nice to everybody we see, every place, and we're going to try to hit like every highway in the United States that we can.
That'll be so
Wow.
fun.
So that's where
I'm
we're
excited
headed.
for
We
you.
start
Awesome.
off. Craig Walter takes over for me tomorrow. I take off for 2 weeks. I got to shift my residency up to South Dakota and sell a car and do some things over the next couple of weeks. Let Craig kind of figure out what's going on. I'll come back and he'll yell at me for the things I forgot to tell him. And he goes, "You didn't tell me about that." And so we'll do a little bit of that, and then I'll be gone by the end of April.
Wow.
Well, what we want you to tell us about is where you get the best discounts. As you're
come back
traveling
and
through the
report
country.
back.
Absolutely. And I promise you, I am going to resurrect my Facebook page. I'm just and I'm going to post like, where is Waldo? Where is Jim?
Yeah.
I'm going to put a little air tag in my trailer too, so that buddies can actually track where I'm at.
Oh, that'd be fun.
It's just going to be kind of like I'm going to let them stalk me.
That'll be fun.
in my air tag on my trailer. Just
There
so,
you
where is Jim now?
I like
That's
that.
awesome. Well, thanks again, Jim. We appreciate your time. And if anyone has any questions or concerns, they can reach out to us as always. They can send us a voicemail. That's one of our favorite ways for you to get in contact with us. That number is 402-885-9930, or you can reach out to us on social media at CCCOMA Podcast on Instagram and TikTok, or send us an email to podcast@cccomaha.org. But until next time, we'll talk to you then.